The impossible encounter. The bartender at Star Stop Junction 7 had been polishing the same glass for what felt like an eternity, his four uniquely positioned eyes studying me with that unsettling intensity I'd grown accustomed to over the years. The sensation never quite settled comfortably, like wearing boots that pinched in all the wrong places. "They're saying it was impossible," I said, breaking the silence that had settled between us like interstellar dust. "Absolutely impossible. But then again, they always do, don't they?" The crowd of assorted beings in the bar grew incrementally quieter, antennae twitching and eye stalks swiveling in my direction. I savored the moment, taking a theatrical sip of my Arcturian mega gin, which despite its name contained neither gin nor anything from Arcturus. "Tell us then, Maximilian," rasped Gravac, an old Thoraxian mercenary whose exoskeleton had seen better cycles. "What exactly did the human child do to the Zor beast that was so impossible? Did she tame it? Kill it? Marry it?" He chuckled, a sound like small stones being pulverized in a garbage disposal. I adjusted my utterly impractical captain's jacket, all unnecessary brass buttons and ceremonial epaulets that served no function beyond announcing loudly to the universe that I flew ships and made questionable decisions. It was a fashion choice that had become my trademark over decades of interstellar travel. "The impossible part wasn't what she did to the beast," I replied, "but what happened afterward. I was there, you know, on Ragnar's moon. I witnessed it all." I paused, aware of my rapidly expanding audience. "The question is, do you want to hear what actually occurred, or would you prefer another recycled tale about space pirates and unlikely heroics?" A symphony of varied affirmations rippled through the crowd, some verbal, some telepathic, and one that consisted entirely of rhythmic bioluminescent flashes. "Very well," I said, leaning forward conspiratorially. "But I warn you, by the time this story concludes, you may wish you'd never asked. After all, I barely escaped with my life, and even now, I sometimes wonder if I truly did." The story begins, as all truly bizarre stories do, with a bureaucratic error. Chaos on Ragnar's moon. I had been contracted to transport scientific equipment to a research outpost on Ragnar's moon, a desolate, atmospherically challenged rock orbiting the equally inhospitable gas giant Ragnar. The moon's surface was a geologist's dream and everyone else's nightmare: jagged obsidian-like formations, crimson dust storms, and an ambient temperature that fluctuated between uncomfortable and immediately fatal. The research outpost itself was a collection of prefabricated structures clinging desperately to the lunar surface like barnacles on a ship's hull. I'd made the delivery run half a dozen times before, always dealing with the same board requisitions officer, a tall, thin human named Dominic with unfortunate facial hair who seemed perpetually on the verge of either falling asleep or having an existential crisis. This time, however, when my ship, the Maximum Effort, named during a regrettable period of self-aggrandizement, touched down on the landing pad, I was greeted not by Dominic but by absolute chaos. Kapow! The sound of an explosion rocked the outpost, followed by a cascade of alarms that blared with the enthusiasm of drunken banshees. I secured my breathing apparatus, an elaborate mask connected to tanks of processed air strapped to my back, and exited the ship. The red dust of Ragnar's moon immediately assaulted my visibility, tiny particles clinging to my protective goggles. Through the haze, figures in environmental suits rushed in all directions, some carrying equipment, others seemingly running in circles of pure panic. One such figure collided with me, a shorter human in a suit at least 2 sizes too large. The helmet tilted back to reveal the face of a child, a girl, perhaps 11 years old, with dark hair pulled into practical braids and eyes that contained a troubling mixture of intelligence and mischief. "You're the supply guy?" she asked, her voice peculiarly calm amid the surrounding bedlam. "I'm Captain Maximilian Void," I corrected automatically, interstellar courier and occasional troubleshooter. My emphasis on "Captain" was entirely for my own benefit, as nobody ever seemed appropriately impressed. "Great. I'm Tessa," she grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "The adults are having a collective breakdown, so I need your help." "What exactly is," I began, but was interrupted by another kapow. And a fresh wave of alarms. They brought something back, Tessa explained, pulling me along. Something they absolutely shouldn't have. And now it's broken containment. The waiting beast. We trudged through the crimson dust toward a structure set apart from the main compound. As we approached, I noticed the security measures, reinforced walls, multiple airlock systems, and what appeared to be energy barriers flickering intermittently. Whatever they had contained here, they had taken it seriously, or at least they had tried to. What kind of something are we talking about? I asked, a sense of dread creeping up my spine like an unwelcome parasite. A Zor, she replied matter-of-factly. I stopped so abruptly that the girl nearly pulled my arm from its socket before realizing I was no longer moving forward. A Zor. I repeated stupidly. As in, the legendary apex predators of the Cygnus Expanse. The creatures that entire planetary defense systems have failed to contain. Those Zors. Yep. Tessa nodded. Though technically, this one's an adolescent. Oh well, that makes it completely fine then, I said, sarcasm dripping from every syllable. Just a baby world destroyer. Practically a pet. It's actually not destroying anything at the moment, Tessa said, resuming her determined march and forcing me to follow. It's just sitting there. That's what's weird. We rounded the corner of the damaged containment facility, and there it was. The Zor. Even in adolescence, it was magnificent and terrifying in equal measure, a creature of impossible evolutionary design. It resembled something like a dragon from ancient Earth mythology, but with key differences that marked it as something far stranger. Its scaled body gleamed with a metallic sheen, wings extending from its back like vast solar sails. A ridge of what looked like bone ran along its spine, and its limbs ended in claws that could shred battleship plating without effort. The beast was partially restrained by massive chains secured to reinforced anchors driven deep into the moon's surface, though several hung broken, indicating it could have freed itself entirely if it wished. It sat amid the ruins of its containment facility, red dust swirling around it in the moon's thin atmosphere, turning the sky an apocalyptic crimson. And sure enough, it wasn't rampaging. It wasn't attacking the fleeing scientists. It was simply waiting, its eyes, intelligent, reptilian, and glowing with an inner light, surveying the chaos with what I could have sworn was mild amusement. See? Tessa said. Weird. Extraordinarily weird, I agreed. But what does this have to do with me? I deliver scientific equipment, not monster handling services. The connection. Tessa turned to face me fully, her expression suddenly serious beyond her years. They're planning to kill it. They've called in a military strike, but I don't think they should. And why is that? Because, she said, lowering her voice, I think it's trying to communicate. I nodded, taking a careful step backward. And you've determined this how, exactly? Tessa tapped her temple with a gloved finger. I can hear it. In here. Wonderful. A telepathic connection with a world-devouring predator. This was rapidly evolving from a simple delivery job into something far more complicated and considerably less lucrative. Look, Tessa, I began, preparing my well-rehearsed speech about not getting involved in matters beyond my contractual obligations, when the Zor's head suddenly swiveled in our direction. Its eyes locked with mine, and then, impossibly, shifted to Tessa with a recognition that sent chills through me. The creature made a sound, not the roar I expected, but something more deliberate. A series of clicks, growls, and rumbling tones that seemed almost linguistic. Grush growl click. It says hello, Tessa translated with such confidence that I momentarily forgot to be skeptical. It most certainly does not, I replied. That's just animal noise. Predatory intimidation tactics. The Zor made another series of sounds, more complex this time. It says you're wrong, and that your jacket has too many unnecessary buttons, Tessa said. I looked down at my admittedly over-decorated captain's jacket, then back at the Zor, whose reptilian face seemed to have arranged itself into something resembling smugness. Fine, I conceded. Let's say, for the sake of argument, that the creature is talking. What does it want? Before Tessa could answer, a voice called out from behind us. Step away from that thing immediately. A tall woman in a lab coat worn over an environmental suit approached, her face visible through her helmet visor, contorted with anger and fear. Her gray-streaked hair was pulled into a severe bun, and the insignia on her coat identified her as Dr. Helena West, Research Director. You don't understand, Tessa protested. It's not dangerous. It has killed 3 of my staff already. Drive West snapped. It is absolutely dangerous. The military response team will be here within the hour, and they will deal with it appropriately. She turned to me. And you are? He's Captain Void, Tessa answered before I could, and he's going to help us save the Zor. I opened my mouth to correct this wildly inaccurate statement, but Drive West was already shaking her head. No one is saving anything. That creature is a threat to this entire research station and potentially beyond. Now come back to the secure bunker, both of you. The tone made it clear this was not a suggestion. I was prepared to comply immediately. In fact, I was mentally calculating how quickly I could get back to my ship and off this increasingly complicated moon, when Tessa grabbed my arm again. Please, she whispered. Just give me 5 minutes with it. There's something everyone is missing. The truth revealed. I looked at the girl, then at the waiting Zor, then at the increasingly impatient Drive West. Every rational thought in my brain screamed at me to walk away, to complete my delivery, collect my payment, and leave this impending disaster far behind. Instead, I heard myself say, 5 minutes, Doctor. What harm could it do? What harm? Drive West's eyes widened. That thing could break free and devour us all in less than 5 minutes. The Zor made another series of sounds, which I steadfastly refused to interpret as a chuckle. If it wanted to devour us all, it would have done so already, I pointed out, surprising myself with this sudden alliance with Tessa's perspective. Those chains aren't holding it, it's staying put voluntarily. Drive West's expression suggested she was calculating which would be more troublesome, allowing us our 5 minutes or physically dragging us to safety. Finally, she sighed in defeat. 5 minutes, she conceded. Then you both come to the secure bunker, or I'll have security bring you there. Understood? We nodded, and she retreated a short distance, watching us warily. Right then, I said to Tessa. 5 minutes. Make them count. The girl didn't hesitate. She walked directly toward the Zor, stopping just outside what I estimated to be its striking range. The creature lowered its massive head, bringing those intelligent eyes level with hers. What happened next defied every law of physics and probability I thought I understood. The Zor began to glow, not with the harsh light of energy weapons or the cold illumination of technology, but with something warm and organic. Tessa's eyes widened, and she placed her small hand against the creature's snout. It's not from here, she whispered, her voice carrying an odd echo. It's from somewhere else. Somewhere far away. And it's been trying to go home. The glow intensified, and suddenly I could hear it too, not words, but emotions. Loneliness. Confusion. A desperate longing for something lost. The Zor wasn't a monster, it was a child, just like Tessa, torn from its family and stranded in a hostile universe. The researchers, Tessa continued, tears streaming down her face, they found it injured, dying. They healed it, but they never asked what it wanted. They just assumed it was dangerous because of what it looked like. The military ships appeared on the horizon, their weapons charging with an ominous hum. Drive West was shouting something, but it seemed distant and unimportant. It needs to go home, Tessa said, looking at me with those impossibly mature eyes. And I think I know how to help it. She pressed both hands against the Zor's forehead, and the glow became blinding. When my vision cleared, both the girl and the creature were gone. Not dead. Not destroyed. Simply, elsewhere. I found Tessa 3 days later, back at the research station, perfectly unharmed but changed in ways I couldn't define. She told me she'd helped the Zor find its way to the dimensional rift that had brought it here in the first place, and that it was now safely home with its family. The military filed reports about equipment malfunctions and sensor errors. Drive West quietly resigned and took a job cataloging space algae on a peaceful agricultural world. And I completed my delivery, collected my payment, and left Ragnar's moon behind. But sometimes, late at night in the quiet of hyperspace, I can still feel that warm glow, a reminder that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than any of us can possibly imagine. And that sometimes, the most impossible things are the ones that matter most. The end.